I'm going to add this at the beginning, but I'm going to go into a bit of a long intro. I like to do whenever I get my watch purchases, I generally try to add a bit of backstory to why and how I got to the decision to buy a particular watch. I just think for me, it's relevant. And if you don't want to hear all that, because, I can go on a bit, I'll put a fast forward thing in the description so you can skip to the actual unboxing. You don't need to hear my story and all that stuff. But if you do, please continue watching and the whole thing through, hopefully. Hopefully it's somewhat enjoyable and insightful. Otherwise, yeah, thanks in advance. Hey, what's up? It's another unboxing time, and the title of the video should be fairly self-explanatory. And yes, I picked myself up a Grand Seiko, and I want to add some backstory to this, so bear with me. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. Knowing my videos, that's kind of tricky. First, here's the Grand Seiko box, and I just cover this bottom portion up just in case the serial number stuck on the corner is of any importance. Don't want that out. But anyways, I did when I got back into the watch journey and hobby and collecting and all that, that was about 2017 or 18, right around there, if I recall correctly. I had taken a break from it, kind of got out of hand, and so I just stepped away, sold everything, and basically kept two, maybe three pieces. I think basically two out of something that was like, I think it was in and out, but it easily could have been 30 or 40 watches at least. Anyways, when I got back in, had a different perspective, slowly adjusting as I was getting back into it. And one of the things I picked up on was Seiko. And through the Urban Gentry, primarily, I watched this stuff a lot and some other handful of other videos, but and then I basically got into learning and appreciating Seiko more. It wasn't just a retail, department store brand, which it can be, but there's so much more beyond that, than what you just see at Macy's or wherever, right? And anyways, and then there's a huge Seiko modding community, especially based off of the SKX, right? Probably the most popular and easily, pieces for those. But now, this 2023, 5 years later, that's watch modding scene has really exploded. Still primarily Seiko-based movements, because there's so many parts for it, and this is just, yeah, very accessible. And you don't even have to buy a watch to start off with anymore these days, right? You can just buy all the separate components at all these third-party places that make aftermarket cases that look just like Seiko ones, and of course there's some other ones that look like, I don't know, probably like AP Royal Oak, Submariner. That's very popular. Submariner is very hard and expensive to get, but you can modify a cool Seiko to get almost like 99% of that feel, right? Anyways, when I was looking back at when I was looking to do basically my second Seiko mod, my first one was actually, I started off with a turtle, not this, but I can't remember the exact model number, but it's one of the early turtle, I guess. Is it even a reissue? But 45 millimeters, all blue bezel and dial, and stainless steel, and came on a bracelet. And I just did a crystal, and what else did I do? I changed it to sapphire, I believe. And I changed the bezel insert. Well, I was going to, but it wasn't my color. But anyway, I changed the bezel itself, so the grip wasn't that. It was changed it into a coin edge, and that was essentially it, if I recall. Very simple. Kept it fairly stock looking, but I had a stainless steel chapter ring on the inside instead of the blue one, and so I don't know, it was kind of cool. My second mod was thinking of an SKX project, and then I started thinking about what should I do. Had some ideas, but basically I started thinking about on an old Tag Heuer watch that I had. It's a long ass reference number, but it's probably around 36 or 37 millimeters. This was back from 1995. It was a quartz diver, white dial, Submariner-ish style, but then, were Mercedes hands, but the indexes, at least with the round and the rectangulars, were reversed. So you actually have rectangulars up at the, I guess, 8 positions, and then it had a date. So then these traditionally would be the rectangles. They were the circles, and I really didn't even realize it was reversed like that on that model until much later. Around this time, I was thinking about my mods, and I said, oh wait, so that is different, but basically it's a Mariner style dial, a classic diver style, and it had a black bezel. And as doing my research, and I really liked that. I had it for 12 years, and I somehow lost it after I moved into a new house, and I think it was during the early first 2 weeks or so when I was repainting and doing epoxying the floors and some big house projects before really settling in. I don't know. It took me a month at least before I realized, wait a minute, where did I put my watch? Anyways, never found it. Maybe it's still hidden in some corner of the house. Maybe in the garage. I built some shelves and maybe it dropped somehow behind it and I built it up around it. I don't know. We'll never know probably, but it's gone for all intents and purposes. But I figured that would be, I love that watch and I wanted to make something that's like that. Black bezel, white dial. And at the time, there really wasn't anybody doing that. I mean, that's nothing. White dial, black bezel divers, it's not all that groundbreaking, but, and especially these days, 5 years later, and maybe slightly before then, they became a little bit more popular. I think for some reason people just avoided them. They just went traditional black or anything with color. Blue is popular, maybe even yellow, right? Something other than white. I don't think anyone really gravitated to that for some reason, but I always did. I'm not saying I'm a leader in modding and coming up with that white dial black bezel diver look, but I would say I didn't see it much, and I wanted to bring it out, and I based my SKX mod off of that general look that I had for that tag. And during my research, I was looking at a Grand Seiko somehow, and it was a quartz diver. I guess it's apparently one of its first, if not the first quartz diver from Grand Seiko using a 9F61 movement. The 9Fs, there's a variety. They're regarded as one of the best, very super accurate. Should be at least plus or minus 10 seconds per year, so super accurate. And anyways, that watch had kind of a Submariner style dial, classic diver with a sort of a triangle and the round plots and then the rectangular stuff at the cardinal points, and it was a no date too, so it had no date, so it had a rectangle there. It had its own unique kind of bezel design. I don't think I've seen anything else like it, the way they did it. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And also the Grand Seiko handset on those was pretty unique at the time. Apparently, I believe, the only other handset I've seen that use the ones like the Grand Seiko divers primarily use these days, ever since, it's got these kind of angular, you'll see in a moment, almost trapezoidal kind of cathedral style handset for the hour, and then an arrow, I guess, handset for the minutes, and then the traditional, way Seiko does counterbalances, except for this. But a lot of the divers, they put like a little round pip at the butt end of it instead of at the pointer tip. But but yeah, and I decided to base my mod off of the SKX mod, off of kind of both the tag and I guess a lot to do with the that Grand Seiko that I saw, which is this model, the SBGX115. And so I modded it, and I found Grand Seiko's diver handset from, I believe it's Yoboki's. I can't remember all the sources. Look back at my video. Basically, this mod became my first, or it became the first iteration. It's called the white, no, not white, the Night King mod, based off of Game of Thrones. Hang on. Okay, I was rudely interrupted, so I lost my place, sort of. But anyways, so my Night King mod for Seiko, look back at that if you're curious, see how that turned out, and compared to this. It's not exact, but it was inspiration. All right, Seiko, Grand Seiko, kind of again mixing my old Tag Heuer watch. I don't know. I may have thrown up some images of those Lisa Tag, maybe, so you can kind of compare and see. Anyways, but at that time, before I was dove into that mod, I was like looking at this Seiko, Grand Seiko rather, and you know, I was like, oh man, I really want this, but then I would really like to get this, and I would skip the mod. But at the time, it's at least, I think brand new retail was 4,100. Quite a big jump over a any kind of Seiko that I could consider. So I kind of threw that on a back burner, or just whatever. That's probably not going to happen. Can't imagine spending that much. As the watch hobby grows, and maybe you do and adjust, you know, you find gradually might find ways that of extending your money, or at least feeling more comfortable about spending a little bit more, a little more, and that's eventually. Recently, I started thinking about this because it's always in the back of my head. It was a really good looking watch. I knew that the 9F was really in it. It was really, really nice, rugged. I believe they say the service interval is like 50 years, but some people have corrected that and saying, well, it's not really 50 years till you get the watch service, and as opposed to the parts and everything are good for 50 years. I don't know what the true story is, but I imagine it should still be a very solid watch that lasts for a long time. And anything starts to feel weird, go get it fixed, right? But if it ain't broken, leave it and keep enjoying it. Why spend the time off and spend the extra money ahead of time when you may not need to? May be different for different folks, and depending on the watch, you might really want to get it serviced early or on a particular schedule just to be sure. But anyways, I digress. So I finally found one. These don't come up that often. They only came in, this is the SBGX115, which is the white dial, but technically, perhaps actually, it's more of a, they say it's more of a almost like silvery. I would imagine it's kind of what some people are like recently referred to the Tudor GMT recently released with the Opaline dial. It's got this slight silvery color. I mean, who else has makes that? Monta has done that with their kind of everyday watch. I forgot the name of that one. It's just it's not their diver, and it's not their field watch, which I can't remember the name of it. But they had one. I say, like for instance, like my Hamilton khaki navy Pioneer, the white dial version I had. You look at that. And a lot of marine chronometer style watches, they don't necessarily always have a pure white. They have like a slight shimmery, it's actually a silver dial, but the way it's done, most lighting, it looks white. And I would say like the Circa 5303, the Dash 2, which should be the white dial version, they also refer to it as silver, but for most angle, again, lighting situations, it looks white. So that's what this is here. And they had, again, the SBGX115 is the black dial version. So still same black bezel, but the dial and everything is black instead. And I like the white version. So let's go into it finally and open it up. And it comes in this, and I got this from Exquisite Timepieces. They seem to have the best price for the quality of the watch. Then a lot of the other ones I've seen when I was searching, and again, they don't come up too often. And the few examples I've seen, they're pretty scratched up, and they're asking for a bit more for them too. So, and then I ended up with this guy here from them. They seem to be, they're a trusted, retail store, I guess, and seller of, new and used pieces. So I figure it should be good. And so many channels recommend them and go through them for their channel content as well. So let's get into this. And it comes in of course, the Grand Seiko blue box, gold writing. And I actually had opened this before. I don't know why. They put this on top, supposedly. I don't know if it will help with scratches, but there we go. It came with one extra link. And yeah, they are not screw pins. They're just push. But I've never had any issues with that. So I think it should be fine. hopefully, I don't know. I suspect they might be missing something on here. That would be my guess. Either the... luckily I don't think I need it, but usually when you have a pin in a system like this, it's not a friction pin. There should be a collar, and I suspect, unless it's still in here, sorry, I'm off camera a little bit. I only see a pin and a link, an extra link. I suspect maybe that extra collar is missing from that, because usually that's what it would have. A collar is going to the center link, and you hammer it through, and it should be able to go either way. Although it has a direction right here. Well, let's take a look. I'm just curious myself, but I'm pretty sure that from my experience, they should have. Make sure nothing drops out. I'm going to take off my glasses so I can see off camera a little bit closer. Let's see, if this runs right through the middle, then it's probably, let's see, I check here. Nope. I suspect it'll go straight through here, so there should be, yeah, they're missing a collar. I'm pretty sure of that. There should be like a thin collar in between here. Yeah, not a big deal, because I believe this, I asked them before purchasing to see what size, did they have all the links, and what size should it fit if they don't. And they said there should be like 7 3/4. Today I'm on the SBDC111, greenish Willard on the Erica's original MN strap. I actually bought this for, I like this strap, and I always thought this would look perfect for it. And actually, so I thought of this before buying this, although I did think about this one when it first came out, but I didn't want to commit to it at the time. It didn't come on a bracelet. And to be honest, I don't know. I wouldn't mind having it on the bracelet, but to get it after the fact, it's a little bit pricey. Secondly, the style of dive watch generally looks better on the strap instead of a bracelet anyways. So from one Seiko to another, and this is back when, very typical branding, didn't come with much papers or anything. It's a tag. This was back when, before they restructured and started doing just Grand Seiko on the dial. So this is an era where they were doing double branding, Seiko and Grand Seiko. And you can see the 9F, of course, will hit the markers perfectly. Hopefully I got it at the right angle, because if it's not, you may see it ever so slightly off. But trust me, when I took this out, like I said, I actually did a pre-unboxing just to be sure before presenting. Yeah. It was, everything was hitting the marks as it should. And it actually does like I don't get the techno terms, but then if you really slow it down, it does like actually a double move between each index. So that's how it's one of the ways that it controls the how it hits the markers perfectly and nicely controlled. The handsets are brushed titanium. It's a high torque movement, quartz movement, so it can actually handle the weight and everything of this pretty well. There is some scratches on this, but overall, there's no die shield coatings, I would imagine. I don't think they usually do that on Grand Seikos, but I could be wrong. Screw down the crown. But overall, I mean, the brushing and the high polish areas aren't too bad. I did notice some before I purchased, like up here, there was some stuff, very faint, and possibly on the bezel. And as I look at it now, you do see that there is some fine scratches on there. And it is not ceramic, even though you would think because of this kind of shiny coat, it would be. But it's supposed to be DLC coated, which is surprising that it's even this scratched up. But like I said, for the most part, I don't notice it. And for a watch that's about potentially, I think they were only produced between 2014 and 15 to maybe 17 or 18, about 3 years, I think is what I was told or researched. So anywhere from 5 to maybe 8 years. It's actually holding up pretty good. You know, just saw decent use. And I mean, look at the if you look at the just wipe out anything. If you look at the class especially, and this is a chunky class, and there's a reason for that. It's not too bad. It's areas that you expect, and that's fine. I'm not going to trip about things that are inevitable. They do a nice bevel and round over on the links, so it's nice and comfortable. There's a little bit more perhaps spacing between the links than maybe another traditionally oyster style bracelet would have. I think at least some people have described this as to help improve breathability of the bracelet on wrist, as well as prevent any kind of hair pulling. But I would say I'm pretty happy with the brushing on the side. It looks fairly good. There might have been some brushing on there, some scratches, but whatever. Overall, it's not too bad. At least the corners seem pretty clean. Just expecting this really closely, actually, for the first time I did the unboxing, but everything. And yeah, there's some scratches up here, but I'm not actually, because my expectations were set low. Yeah, it's all right. Let's clean this up. And you can just see, overall, this is Zaratsu polishing, which it should be, because Grand Seiko, right? They should Zaratsu polish everything. At least everything, at least I can tell, like the transition areas seem fairly clean and sharp as can be. I've never held an actual Grand Seiko before. And we do a loom test at the end just to show. And oh, this has like a Marine Master style clasp, so you can flip this up, and while on wrist you can extend it. See, just by moving that up, it's normally locked, but when you just give it a little bit, release this, and you can, it's a dive extension, and you can consider it as a micro adjust, and it just ratchets back in. It's pretty cool. Yeah, and you can do it while it's like this. You can see the mechanism, how it works. It goes all the way out. Quite the extension. Won't need all that. And otherwise, yeah, Grand Seiko could still use some work on their bracelets. Especially like the main dial, and of course, the watch head is usually pretty nice, but always the bracelet seems to be a little bit lackluster. But I wasn't expecting much. I wanted this to be fairly basic and unassuming, but it's one of these ones that are under the radar, and I think only the real Seiko fans or watching through this will really, if they see this, they'll recognize this and say, "Oh, I know, that's kind of cool. It's not your typical diver." And they set this in pretty good, so I'll show you. This has on my wrist, which is about 7 inches, and this is a 42.7 millimeter. At least that's what I think most people say. It's actually very SKX-like in size. Then it's not very thick. I think it's just about 13. Lug to lug, under 50 if you don't count the male end links. If you do, I think it's maybe 51, but they do turn down aggressively, so it's not too bad. You don't, sometimes these can jut out, and then when this comes down, the top surfaces of these links can kind of look like they're hanging on the outside a bit, and as they are here, it doesn't seem like that. It flows pretty nicely on my wrist here. And I have a lot of smaller vintage style watches. My Tudor Black Bay 58. The Serica is new, but it's kind of very vintage inspired. The feel is almost like a 38, maybe even a borderline 37. So I have those, which is cool. But I wanted something. I mean, I think Seiko is known for primarily, especially their divers, even more modern divers. You're looking at between anywhere from 41 to 46-ish, depending on the model, and anywhere in between. So this being 43 or just under, sits in that middle zone, and it's still, I think, that's about as large as I would want to go for most watches, except for the tuna. That's a different case, but yeah. So this is how it looks like, and you can see I definitely have room, luckily, to adjust it. And since there's actually quite a bit of, not quite a bit, but there are some links in here, I like to put it out as possible, so to avoid having this class scratch any additional links. So I'll probably figure out a way to adjust that, and we'll get that side. You can't, it doesn't really look very silverish, but it's got this fine satin finish to it. And so, I don't know, it looks good. It keeps it kind of tooly too. So there we go. The SBGX115. Finally did it. And I know I've always went in my head, since I like that tag, and it's always stuck in my head that if I have to have a white dial black bezel diver or something of the like. The closest thing recently has been, I suppose, that's in the collection still is the Zen 104 white dial, but that is actually on sale because this is going to take its place. And I actually wanted to keep it as a true diver versus that, which is more of a pilot watch, but it is totally capable as a diver because it's 200 meters, which this is as well, and screw down crown, and it's got pretty decent loom, which reminds me of, we're going to turn off the lights and we're going to check out the loom. It should not disappoint, I think. Yep, and where's my UV light? Just in case. this should glow. This looks more blue in the video than it actually is. So actually, think of it. Imagine it being just basically your standard Seiko green, and this should work just well all night. This Seiko Lumen White is pretty great as a stock, manufacturer's formula for loom goes. So that's it. I'll turn back on the lights and expect some more wrist shots and things of that sort very soon. And thanks for watching this, of course, long unboxing. Hopefully you were able to fast forward it if you didn't want to hear my backstory, which is kind of long, I know. But anyways, that's what it is. Thanks. And I'll see you. Enjoy your watches. I know I will on this one.